Welcome to Intermediate Acoustic here at Andy Guitar. This is a direct follow-on from the syllabus that we did in Beginner Acoustic. Starting from here is absolutely fine, but if there's anything you struggle with, check out Beginner Acoustic, especially the last 3 levels. They will really get you up to speed, perhaps with some of the things we cover in this course and this first module. Let's make a start with the intermediate lessons now. And this first lesson is all about the picking hand. An example of this is when a learner guitarist says, I can do the strumming and chords in this song, but I can't do the picking. For example, Good Riddance, Time of Your Life is a very common song that people are comfortable strumming and playing the open chords, but the intro picking is very difficult because it's at more of an intermediate level than the other things in that song. The difference here is that most beginner strumming songs are all strumming most of the strings available in any particular chord. Perhaps you've started doing thicker strings on the down strum, thinner strings on the up strum and doing some embellishments. But the way we can massively elevate that for different chord progressions and just make everything sound a lot better is have the ability to pick the root note of whatever chord we're playing. G major is here, and then strum. And have that pick, strum, which if I do up to tempo, I kind of nickname this Bob Dylan strumming. A very similar thing is done in country and many Johnny Cash type songs, and that single note pick can really bring a lot of basic strumming patterns to life, because otherwise, I mean, that's just strumming on the beat otherwise. So let's give that a go. Use the same technique, a same small pick with the pick on the side of the first finger. You can do this with holding a pick like this. I just really want you to try and do it with the pick on the side, and we can even do the same pattern without a pick too. I'll show you that in a second. But we're just going to go for pick, strum, pick, strum. Notice how the picking hand is very still or does a very small motion of the wrist on the pick and is more free-flowing, still with a slight twist of the wrist on the strum, but it's all just a small twist of the wrist to do the single note pick. Very small motion, and then we kind of just throw it down, just flick it away, flick it away. And that down, 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 up, down is a nice thing to try and get used to. We can do that with fingerstyle, with the thumb, and then just the first finger. The up down can feel a little weird here because we actually use the fleshy part of the first finger. And fingerstyle will always sound more gentle than strumming with a pick, but you'd be surprised what kind of volume you can get out of a strum with just the nail of the first finger. We can really get volume comparable to a pick. When we do that with other chords, we may have to change string for that root note. For example, on a C major chord, as we covered already, that is the C note on string 5, and that's where we'd strum from. We can kind of safeguard that we're going to hit that and not accidentally hit, string 6 by having the thumb just sat on top, not over, not like this, just sat on top of string 6. And that means that if we accidentally hit the thickest 2 strings, it's actually all right. That's saved our bacon there. And we can do, however, ideally, pick, strum like this. And we do want, I'm doing it slowly, but we do want just one sound. We're not doing this. We want just one sound. And when we do that on, for example, a D major chord, that D root note is on string 4, which is quite away from string 6. So we're a little bit further down, it can feel a little bit weird. This one can take a little bit longer to develop. And we can't rely on the kind of technique of muting string 6. We need to just pick. But it is less of a strum down. We don't need to strum as far. Keep the motions as small as possible. Here's the trick. For all of these intermediate level techniques. Finally, I promised we'd look at something called hammer-ons and flick-offs that we can play on guitar. The hammer-on is an easier motion, and it's where we can pick and get a string kind of moving and vibrating, but then hammer on just with the fretting hand, and we get a note ringing out. And when we pick and then hit the note, and we can even do a combination of hammer-ons and flick-offs and do like the rock star thing, even on acoustic guitar. But when we pick and hammer on, or pick and flick off, that is technically known as combination picking. It uses a combination of both hands. And one thing that we can add to this, quite simply, but it is a step up from what we've done so far, is, for example, on G major, pick string 6, strum, pick string 5 with an open string 5, so first finger off, hammer, and do a strum, and we get this pattern. A wonderful, folky, Bob Dylan-y style strumming pattern. So that is involving picking string 6, strum, pick string 5 with an open first finger, and have that middle finger placed so that that open string will ring out. It will be a little higher because we're not pressing it down, so that's something to get used to. Pick that open string, hammer on with the first finger, and strum. And we get the rhythm of 1, 2, 3, and 4. We can, of course, do that same combination picking with a pluck of the thumb and the first finger. Let me demo that. If we do that same thing on a C add 9, so the common C add 9 chord, we can even use the same technique. Picking string 5, strum, pick string 4 with the first finger lifted off, but keep it close because it's going to pick, then hammer on, and then strum. And then we can do that same thing on a D major chord. Pick the D root note. Pick string 3 this time. And then strum. Lift off that first finger. Pick, hammer on. We can do the same on that C chord. And G major chord. Now let's have a look at a jam track which you can play along to with visual tab and visual chords on screen so that you know where you are at each section of this, and this is your practical assessment of the skills that we've looked at so far. There is also a suggested lead line which you will see is tabbed out in the play along visual jam track. However, that too might not be for everyone right now. But if you did work through beginner acoustic and you have that single note lead line experience, particularly of the slide that we looked at quite heavily, and this G major pentatonic scale, that higher octave of which goes very well with G, C add 9 and D in a wish you were here type style, then it is tabbed out for you if you wish to learn it. Here we go, best of luck. There's our first visual jam track. Hopefully that went well for you. However, if anything isn't falling together straight away, we've got to manage those expectations. We've always got those easier steps to peg it back to, maybe just the root note and everything, or maybe just the thicker strings and everything. And we can build in that detail as we practice more, as we get more experience of what's required at this intermediate level. Same goes with that single note lead line. If you're not ready for that yet, it's not imperative that you have it down before you move on from this level, and indeed this jam track. We can revisit it later when we start to acquire more of these skills that you might not have come across yet. All the best with learning this one, and I will see you in the next video.